All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Big Facts. I'm here with the boys from Catching Three. I got AJ and Tony Nicky Jr. with us. Give us a little breakdown of tonight's Thursday night matchup, along with some visiting of this Week 5's upcoming games. Tony Nicky, you just got back from Alabama, and you thought this might be one of the better games of the year. Favorite, obviously, Alabama. How was that experience going to Alabama? I know you try to do it every year. And what was your takeaway from this Alabama team watching them dominate this game?
Game was awesome. My take certainly is it's Alabama and everybody else. I get Georgia's up there. Georgia, it's still Alabama and everybody else, man. This team is loaded. My last time I was there, it was the LSU game, funny enough, when Burrow kind of took it to him. Tua got hurt, lost the game by 6, I think it was. And it's funny, man, this team is just head and shoulders above the competition. Now, it was crazy. That line was at 15, getting so much Ole Miss love. Everyone was talking up Ole Miss. Everyone was talking up Lane Kiffin going back. And he just looked like such a jackass pregame when he said, "Get your popcorn ready," tosses off the headset. Like, I don't think he knew where he was. And I was saying before the game, I think the moment is too big for this Ole Miss team. I think the moment's too big for Corral. They had to go for it like 4 times on the first possession, 4 fourth down attempts to get all the way down, and then they don't score any points. And the bloodbath started early, and it really kept up through the whole game. It wasn't even as close as that final score said.
So it's a perfect lead up to the question, because I told you I had a college football question for you. You asked me to give it to you. I told you I wanted to give it to you live. And the question specifically is about Georgia, because I don't watch much college football, but I've watched a couple Georgia games, and like full halves, not complete games. I've watched a couple halves of Alabama football, probably a couple quarters more than anything. That Georgia team, it's not that teams aren't scoring points against them. It's that they're barely moving the football. It becomes an intriguing matchup, in my opinion, just watching the two teams for a brief period of time. But you watch way more Bama football. What makes you so confident that it's Alabama and everybody else and not Alabama and Georgia and everybody else, aside from the fact that obviously Alabama's been dominating college football for the longest time now?
For sure. I mean, it is Saban and everybody else too, as far as from a coaching standpoint in those big games. But listen, I don't want to like crush Georgia. If there's anybody else even in the conversation, it is Georgia. They get the Southern California kid, JT Daniels. He was supposed to be like the savior for USC a couple years ago. He was a huge high school prospect, got injured on his first ever play, I think it was, at USC, at least one of his first ever games, had the big knee injury, never came back there. And now he's here at Georgia, missed the first game. Hasn't looked great, but like has that big time potential to be really good. And Georgia plays awesome defense. When push comes to shove, Bryce Young is the best college football player in the country. I'm kicking myself for not banging 5-1 on him preseason at Heisman.
Because, is that what it was?
Dude, and I thought the number was short. I figured you'd get like 10-1 on this kid, and 5-1 to me felt short. Now he's like plus 120, and he's a lock, man. The only other guy in the conversation was Corral, the Ole Miss quarterback, who was so out of his league against Bama last Saturday. So when you have Bryce Young in this offense, Robinson running the ball can get you 200. If he went for 170 the other day, you got Mechie, you got weapons all over the field. Bama's going to score their points, man, and Bama's defense does enough, gets the big plays. In a one-game showdown, I'm rolling Tide. Maybe I'm biased, but I'm rolling Tide, man.
Yeah, I mean, well, if that's the SEC championship game, I mean, if it gets to that point and they're both undefeated,
they'll play twice.
They'll play twice, exactly, because they're both going to make the national championship. They are A and 1A, and then everybody else is C, D, E, and F. You know, there's really no competition. But I agree with you at the coaching mismatch, definitely. And, you know, defense, you just have to see. It'll definitely be the best defense that Bama has played.
Yeah, Georgia's got some tests coming up, some test games coming up as well.
They do, and Georgia's good. But, dude, Georgia's shot against Bama, I say this all the time, was 21-0 against Jalen Hurts. Literally watching that, and you're going, shit, dude, this is serious problems here. And then in comes the Hawaiian kid no one knew about that could sling the ball and comes all the way back. I just remember, you know what I mean?
The kid that I was telling Justin was going to be such a great NFL quarterback, and then the other kid that's running my no, he's not running my Eagles into the ground. He's actually probably performing around or above expectations, but still not looking great. Let's move to prime time tonight. We got a big matchup, Seahawks Rams. I'm excited for the game. It's an interesting game because you had brought up a stat to me about the Seahawks in primetime games, and you have a lot going on as far as betting goes where you can give me a lot more insight into this line than a lot of other people can. But I'm looking at this game, guys, and I'm looking at Seattle being 2-2 and the Rams being 3-1 with their first loss last week, probably a pretty angry squad. That being said, I'm trying to figure out what to make of the Seahawks team opening up, beating the Colts, who I think everybody kind of looks at the Colts right now and thinks they're probably performing below expectations at this point. Most people would say that if you ask them what their record would be at this point in the year. And then you lose to a Titans team at home, which is surprising just based on the way Tennessee's kind of played this year, and then get smashed by the Vikings in their stadium, come back and beat the 49ers, and now you got the Rams in prime time. So it's a little hard for, I think, most people to make what the Seattle Seahawks are right now. I think most people know what the Rams are. I think they know where the superstars on the team are. I think they know, who everybody is on the Rams team. There's names everywhere. What do you make of this Seahawks-Rams matchup? And I'm not going to ask you which way you're leaning because I think you're giving this bet out on catching 3, but just give me your best breakdown of this game right now.
Yeah, sure. So, and to segue to that, we do have a play on this game on the side. So anybody who's watching this live, if you head to Catching 3, if you find us on Instagram at Catching 3, DM us, say you're watching us on Big Facts, we'll give you a free night. We'll give you the pick for tonight. But, just everything you said, you can't disagree. I will push back a little bit on the Rams. Obviously, we've talked about the Rams a couple times, and they're definitely a team that looks to be favored to win the Super Bowl. But if you look back at the games they played, right? So they played the Bears against Dalton week 1, right? Dalton was moving the ball up and down the field against them, right? Mm-hmm. So they go week 2, they play the Colts. Carson Wentz moved the ball up and down the field against this defense. Brady struggled definitely against them. And then last week, obviously, Murray goes off on them, right? Yeah. So the quarterbacks they played those first 2 weeks really weren't that great and still were getting the ball moved up and down on them. So their defense may be a little overrated. You're getting a quarterback coming in this week who's just not quite as mobile as Murray, but he's a mobile quarterback. Home game, short week, division game, you're on the road. So there are some things to look at on the Seattle side, but I do agree with you where if you look up and down the roster, the Rams definitely have the better roster.
Yeah, the Rams are a loaded team. I like a lot about them. That Bucs game was a huge game for them. I haven't seen McVay running up and down a sideline like that ever, so they wanted that Bucs game. I think they got up a ton for it, so they performed really well. To me, I get Russell Wilson, like you said, 9-1 in primetime spots. I've been a big Matthew Stafford bettor for a long time. I loved him when he would be catching 7 in division games and shit, like to sling it and keep it close. This is the first year Stafford kind of has to prove it to me now. Like, is Stafford a quarterback that should be laying 3 on the road and can confidently lay 3 on the road and win those games? Like, I'm not sold on that yet.
And here's the key to this game. One of the keys to this game, too. They always flash it up. If you notice, when the Rams have the lead and they go to the locker room, they're always flashing this perfect record with McVay. They are a great front-running team. When they're ahead, they're able to run and gun.
At halftime, I think they're 43-0 if they're leading at
half. Yeah, they put you down. But if they're behind, like they had no chance of coming back in that game against Arizona last week. Yeah. They don't perform as well when they're down. So if they're able to get up early, then they have a really good chance after halftime to win this game. But if Seattle can get up early on them, it's going to be an uphill battle against division foe.
So if you're the Seahawks, just get into the coach's mind for a second. If you're the Seahawks, you have Russell Wilson at your quarterback. You have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. Outside of that, not much going on offensively, and just been atrocious on defense for the past couple years, and probably an overpaid, I think most would agree, safety at this point, safety/linebacker, trying to just kind of figure out an offensive identity. Last year, let Russ cook. This year, it's like, well, what else do we do but let Russ cook? We have 2 primetime receivers, but you have Jalen Ramsey on one side of the field. You have Aaron Donald up the middle. You have some good pass rushing DNs, and just an overall good defense. Where do the Seahawks start in this type of game in order to try to win this game?
Let Russ cook.
Yeah, I think it's it sounds crazy, dude.
Yeah.
But like, what does Green Bay have around Rodgers really? Like forever, what's it been? Brady's carry team. The quarterback's a huge position. Russell Wilson's one of those covering machines.
Yep.
He's coming at you for 4 quarters. He's going to keep slinging it, moving it up and down the field, even when he loses. Seattle will never be an awful team when you have a quarterback like Russell Wilson. At worst, they're a middle of the pack, but closer to the front of the pack kind of team at worst, because they can sling it and score with you. And that's the kind of game I expect, really. I've watched the Rams defense kind of get shredded a lot this year.
Yeah, now these teams played each other 3 times last year, and the under hit all 3 times. So they're a lower scoring, closer game than people might expect. I don't know if it's going to be an over game or an under game this time, but every time you're in a division matchup, the teams just know each other so well. He knows Jalen Ramsey's over there. He knows he's going to look at who he's matched up against. And he's, Donald in the middle absolutely is a problem, but he's had a bad offensive line his whole career. He's the guy that's running in the backfield 10, 15 yards, just circle around, and then throws a bomb to Lockett. So, I just expect a typical game. How are they going to win? He's just got to play, his normal
out of his mind.
When I take home field out of it, like, do I see 6 points? I don't know. I don't know if I see this kind of difference between the Rams and Seattle, as far as the difference, like in talent on the team, because I think Seattle can keep up with them. Sure. I'm not saying Seattle can stop them really either, but again, now I'm playing Stafford as a favorite on the road. To me, I kind of want to see that get proven.
Yeah. Now, to your point, though, if you are somebody who's backing Seattle, you're not happy that the Rams lost last week because, like you said,
we said that earlier, right? But
they're going to be pissed off, right? So you're not happy about that. And to your point about the Minnesota game and the Tennessee game, you see the NFL week is just a week to week league. You can't even look back at some of the games that have happened because a lot of times it has no reflection on what's going to happen. Expect the unexpected in the NFL. So, while they lost those games, they could come out tonight and win by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and I'm not sure where you guys were on this last week. I had a couple people that were like, Jets. This is the week the Jets upset somebody. And I'm like, absolutely not. You said
on the podcast. I said this they're going to win.
Yeah, and I you know what? I completely forgot that both Julio and AJ Brown were going to be out. But even aside from that, I was like, there's no way. Now Zach Wilson had probably his and he's made some incredible plays in general, just flashes of you see why Zach Wilson was taken number 2. But overall, statistically, and their win losses, it's just looked bad for them. And this past game, you finally get a glimpse of what it could be if they could shore up some things with the Jets. What's your take on, I know you're a big Mac Jones guy, Tony Nicky. Have you looked into the way Zach Wilson's been playing it all this year, and are there things you like or don't like, or is this just a really bad and horrible way to try to evaluate a quarterback simply because he's on the New York Jets?
It's certainly tough to evaluate a guy on the Jets. I don't think it was fair to Darnold for those years. I'm not a huge Wilson guy personally, man. I'll tell you what, because we were on the Jets. I watched that entire game. He had some bad passes in that first half. I mean, like, missing the 10-yard hooks, throwing it low and away. I mean, bad misses that NFL quarterbacks don't miss. But then I get it. When plays break down, he can do some special things. What scares me is, like, how often do those plays break down? You get those crazy passes. Well, now the secondary's in shambles, so you can get a guy streaking down the field. And, yeah, he can air it out 60 yards. But how often do those plays happen? When I see him missing some of these open receivers early in the game and all, I mean, it scares the hell out of me.
Yeah. The reason, we were joking, I was joking when I was on with you last week, and somebody asked, when did the Jets get the first win? And I was saying this week, I didn't know they were going to win the game, but we did like them to cover over a touchdown. And really the main reason why we liked it was the Jets defense has played decent all year. Yeah. And if you look at the opponents that the Jets played early in the season, they had Carolina's front, they had the Patriots, Bill Belichick against a rookie quarterback, the Broncos defense is great, and then they're playing the Titans, which was a huge step down. So I think the book's still out on him. I would agree with Tony Nicky. If you can't make those easy plays, that's a problem. But I don't think he's as bad as those first 3 weeks, though.
Yeah, no, for sure. Now let's shift real quick to the last primetime game we saw, which was probably disappointing for you guys. But maybe not a surprise. I'm not sure where you guys were leaning on this game. Chargers Raiders. I expected the Raiders to. First of all, I'm listening to the crowd before the game starts, and pretty much with any LA team, you're going to get, and especially with the way the Raiders fans travel, it was literally about half and half. It might have been 60-40 Raiders fans there. There was a lot of black in the crowd. They did like a circular motion with the cameras. I was like, there's black everywhere. People start cheering. It was probably 60-40. It was kind of hard to tell. What happened to the Raiders in this last game? I know people probably didn't expect them to start off 4-0, so it's hard to say that it was a disappointing loss, but you thought they might have a better showing against the Chargers. The Chargers, on the other hand, have a couple ballers on that team, and I enjoy watching them. They're a lot of fun. Give me a breakdown of that game based on just you watching the Raiders over the last 4 weeks.
Sure. Tough spot, certainly. We actually did like the Raiders on that Monday nighter. I thought it was a lot of value there with the Chargers coming off the huge KC win. But bigger than that, man, Gus Bradley, who I've been preaching since the preseason, is the saving grace of the Raiders. This was the D coordinator for Herbert year one. To me, and I saw the total open at like 54. It ended up down to 52, and it was just screaming. I said to AJ before the game, man, this is going to be like ugly. I don't think it's going to be scoring like people think. I think the defenses show up, and I was like, this is a 23-20 kind of a game, maybe like just a lower scoring, tough to score. I thought we got a lot of that. You had the 8-minute drive to start for the Chargers, and then it went quiet. They went like punt, turnover. Raiders didn't move the ball at all, which was stunning. Right. It was that bad. They had a lot of problems with the defensive line of the Chargers. But it was a 21-0 game at halftime. They set themselves behind the 8 ball, and then the Raiders come storming back, 21-14. And the whole third quarter and halfway through the fourth, the Chargers can't score again. Gus Bradley had to shut down.
Yep.
So the Raiders had every chance in the world and couldn't get there. To me, it was kind of a promising Raiders sign because Carr's going to have his days. Jacobs still is a little banged up. Incognito wasn't playing. Huge for the guard spot. Wasn't playing right now. So, like, there's so much coming for the Raiders. I'm just hyped with this Raiders defense. For the first time in years, dude, I can get off the field on third down. It's great.
Yeah, understood. Now, Bosa made some comments about Derek Carr, and you've watched the Raiders a lot more than I've watched the Raiders. How much fact do you find in those comments? I know Derek Carr said they got under his skin a little bit with that comment. Bosa's the kind of guy that I don't think he was up there taking shots. I think he was literally just relaying the discussions they probably had amongst themselves in the locker room and kind of being open. It didn't come off that he was talking a lot of shit. He was just like, hey, man, it is what it is. This is what he does. Do you agree with those comments based on watching Carr over the last couple of years?
Well, it's funny because I know they're friends too, so I don't think it was hostile at all. I'm like totally – I think they just discussed that all week. It's an interesting point. I mean, and he definitely – slid down early on that last 3rd and 3 when it was 21-14. It was a huge play in the game, and he went down early in that spot. I don't disagree with it. When Carr gets pressure, he isn't the same quarterback, but I also Carr's is the most underrated quarterback in the league to me. I really believe that, dude. This is going to be 3 years in a row. His QBR is over 100. He's going to throw for over 4,000 yards. He might push 4,500 this year. I mean, he slings it, Derek Carr, and he gets no love for it. Only like a 7 interception kind of guy, 8 interception per.
You got to win games to get the love, right?
Got to win games to get the love. I think this year they win some, man.
Yeah, be good for 4 straight years, but you got to win some football games. We'll see what happens with their schedule for the rest of the year. And I really like that Chargers team, man. There's a lot of QBs that we look at, and you're like, man, if this guy makes the jump his second year. And to be honest with you, I don't feel like Herbert made like this massive jump into his second year, but he's definitely a little bit calmer. He's a quarterback that loves throwing from within the pocket. I mean, in the pocket, the dude is incredible. We don't even have to talk about his outside the pocket stuff. In the pocket, he's great as well. You still got Keenan Allen over there. They got Eckler in the backfield over there. They got Bosa on the D-line. This is a really nice-looking Chargers team, in my opinion. Any insight on the Chargers as you've watched them?
You ready for a hot take?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think those two are the top 2 teams in that division.
Chargers, Raiders. And I agree.
I think it's Chargers, Raiders. I think the Chargers were impressive. Herbert looks like he took another step forward year 2. Yeah. He looks good. When he's protected, he can, he could sling it, and he has weapons. The defense, just like I was impressed with the Raiders defense too, but I was impressed with the Chargers defense as well.
Good point.
The Chargers defense looked really good. So,
and I'll say this, the jury's not out on him yet, but Staley to me looks like an upgrade over Lynn for sure.
Oh yeah.
So in that regard,
He's competent.
He's competent.
He's competent.
Late in the game, when you're waiting for the Chargers to lose, it's like, what the hell is Anthony Lynn going to do in this situation?
Yeah.
Now this guy that doesn't look bad, so that's huge.
He's going for it on fourth downs, and it makes sense what he's doing. Like he has logic and theory, and he broke down the run game in an interview yesterday or something, and it just it's clear.
I saw that. Yeah.
He knows what he's doing. It's everything he does is methodical. It's well thought out, and anything's an upgrade from Anthony Lynn. So,
sure.
And so me and Justin, by the way, too, and I'm sure we weren't the only ones. There was a lot of people that were really high on him. Rashawn Slater, we were just super high on, and them being able to get him. I think they picked 12 or 13th or something like that. So Rashawn Slater was their pick this past draft. He hasn't given up a single sack this year for Justin Herbert's played 176 passing snaps, and he's an absolute animal. So good for the Chargers. They got some key pieces in place. Let's move to the Eagles game. Did we discuss the Eagles-Chiefs at all? I don't think we've been on since that game.
No, we talked about it beforehand, right before the game, but not after. No.
Yeah, so there's been a lot made, let's say, of the defensive game plan, the defense's play overall for the Eagles. I don't think anybody punted until I don't know if anybody punted until
there was no punt
in the whole game, right? The Eagles continue to shoot themselves in the foot. You didn't think they were going to come out and beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs' defense is terrible. But if you can't stop the pass or the run, if you're the Eagles, a lot of people took the defensive coordinator took heat for this last game. They couldn't do anything on defense. The whole field was open. If they had capitalized on some of the scores, maybe the game changes. But if the Eagles are trying to keep up with the Chiefs, it's just not going to work. The talent differential is just too big. Do you buy what Gannon says in regards to just them not having the defensive players or personnel they need to run different type of packages, and him just dropping everybody back in a cover 2 zone or any type of zone all game and just not letting up a deep play? I mean, you guys, I played more football, so you know a little bit more about this than I do. What do you make of the comments about the defensive coordinator, and how can they improve upon last week?
Well, I think that Fletcher Cox even came out with some comments saying that he's not being used correctly. And you don't know if that's ego talking or if he's really not being used correctly, but they don't have a lot of talent.
Yeah.
Defense. They seem like a team that needs to let everything up between the 20s. They just need, like you said, they need to back up, let them get the chunk plays, and they need to run some sort of scheme in the red zone. And that's where they need to hold people to field goals, because they're not going to get teams in the third and long. They're going to move up and down the field. They really need to just work on that red zone defense. But talent-wise, they don't have a ton of talent back there.
They don't have a ton, but I also think listen, and Philly loves overreacting. They come out week 1. Atlanta sucks. I get it, but they hold Atlanta down, and then they play a defensive war against San Francisco that I thought was poorly coached offensively, that they could have stole them game. They get shredded by Dallas and Kansas City, who has shredded everybody. Dallas is shredded every single team. And to be honest with you, I think they might show up this weekend and be in a defensive bullshit war kind of a game against Carolina. I see that as both teams scoring at most around 20, but I think it's going to be a lower scoring game.
And I think that's not a bad point. It's really dependent on the team they're playing. And, San Fran, we thought that was a great defensive battle, which it was, but San Fran's shown that they're not great on offense either. Sure. So it's tough. They play well against teams that don't have a great offense. But when they're totally outmatched against a team like the Chiefs,
and they are. But let me say this too, AB, because my take really from that, and again, I know the defense got shredded. I went into that saying though, the Eagles have to score. They have to sling it to keep up with KC. I knew they'd get shredded. Yeah. To me, in the first half, they each had 4 possessions in the red zone. The Eagles kicked 3 field goals. The Chiefs kicked none. When you get into those first and goal spots with Jalen Hurts, we had 3 of them. We got no touchdown. He's not accurate enough in those tight windows like that. It's a problem. And then when the first read isn't there, it's a breakdown. He's running around for his life. It's a nightmare in first and goal scenarios with this kid.
Yeah, and the Chiefs were going into the game. The Chiefs, I think, were their defense in 9 red zone appearance, against them in 9 red zone appearance, they let up 8 touchdowns. Yeah. And the Eagles were only 3. The Eagles were only 3 for 6 against them. So that was the whole game with there.
With 2 called back. And I think the other thing with this team too is, I understand the way Gannon's game planning. I understand when you play certain teams, you want to make certain quarterbacks drive all the way down the field, not make, force them to not, hey, if you're going to drive all the way down the field and not make any mistakes, and it's a 15-play drive and you get all the way down there and you score, like, tip of the cap, because that's kind of what we want you to do. Hopefully you'll make a mistake. But when you're playing guys, you have a young team that has a new coach, and you're trying to win some football games, and you're trying realistically just not to be the worst team in your division at this point, and you're probably not going to make the playoffs, you would think that would work against teams that have average to above average quarterbacks. But when you're playing guys like Dak Prescott and Mahomes, it's very rare for those guys to make any type of mistake, whether it's 6 plays down the field or 15 plays down the field. So you would think you would start to see some kind of disguises, some kind of blitzes, just something else to plan for. Because when you play the elite quarterbacks, they're elite because they don't make mistakes, and they're elite because they can make every pass. So in the instance of the Chiefs, and again, I think it comes down for the most part to, touchdowns that got called back, the offensive line, penalties, just Jalen Hurts gets out of the pocket. There's an eligible guy downfield. There's always something with the offensive line taking scores away. But you weren't going to win that shootout. So you have to take some chances against, teams like Dallas and KC, right? Like, you're not going to win those shootouts.
Well, I love that take too, I'd be honest. That's a great take because Mahomes is going to go 15 on you. So you're 15 plays on you. You might as well try to get him in 2nd and 20 because that's where you need to be. You need to be 2nd 20, 2nd 25. Well, not that they weren't slamming those plays too.
Yeah, and especially with those quarterbacks. Well, not even the quarterbacks. You're talking about 2 teams with wide receivers that are, you put a quarterback 5 seconds back there. The cornerbacks aren't going to be able to stay with those receivers. So, the point what I was saying was, you give up the 20 to 20, but you do have to start disguising some blitzes and stuff like that when it gets crunch time, because you can't give them time back there, or they're gonna shred you apart.
Yeah, and my whole thing is, like, your linebackers can't fucking pass cover or run stop, so just fucking disguise them and send one of their fucking worthless back there anyway, right?
Graham's the biggest loss of the season, almost for any team. Graham is so huge for that defense.
And listen, the type of defense that he wants to run hinders on 4 guys getting pressure. Right. So when Fletcher Cox isn't having a great season and Brandon Graham's injured and your backup's Ryan Kerrigan, who hasn't recorded a stat in 5 games, you have to try something different. So I'm hoping they come out in the next couple of weeks and just start to put little things in there to just try to make it a little bit different, because teams know what they're going to do. And if you can't get pressure with 4, your linebackers are screwed. They can't pass cover. The DBs, for the most part, have played pretty well. I know Tyreek kind of went off on them a little bit, but he does that to just about everybody. I think the secondary's actually obviously been, improved, but the linebackers are just terrible. I'm looking at the draft picks, and I'm like scratching to get to next year's draft for them, hopefully with 3 first-round picks. So we'll see what happens. Let's move to the Carolina game since we've been talking about that. So Sam Darnold is one of those guys that will make mistakes. The other side of this coin, and I forget who I was talking to earlier. I think it was Tony Nicky. We were talking about this Panthers game. When you watch them play Kansas City this week compared to the previous week against Dallas, Dallas had their number, defensively. They didn't do anything different last week. They were just realistically playing a different opponent. They were running the same type of wide receiver screens, the same type of slants, the short passes, quick outs, get it in the wide receiver's hands, let them make plays, barely running the ball. I'm assuming we're going to see some more of that. Carolina has one of the fastest defenses in the league. They have 2 guys that are defensive ends that are burners over there. And I'm actually terrified as an Eagles fan this week because I think just the matchups are a nightmare for the Eagles. Give me your breakdown of this Eagles game against the Panthers.
How much start?
You got it.
I mean, to me, dude, this is going to be a low-scoring war kind of a game. If it isn't, listen, if Darnold can move it like he did late in that Dallas game, because they were coming back. They were slinging it and moving. If he had another 4 minutes, 3 minutes, honestly, that was going to be a game. If it's like that, the Eagles are dead because Hurts is not going to move the ball like that. It can't be that kind of game. They have to play this like the San Fran game. It has to be – and God forbid McCaffrey comes back in 1 week from that hamstring injury, because then
that would be dumb in my opinion. But if just sit him another week and make sure.
Incredible to me, mind blowing. If he comes back, that's a problem in itself for the Eagles. Before honestly, you sent me that, I was thinking McCaffrey, no way he was going to play this week, and then I was like, man, I think Carolina will struggle to move the ball also, and it's one of those. 16-13. Maybe it gets to a 20-13 kind of a game. I just saw low scoring like that.
Yeah, I could see I'm looking at the lines and everything.
So the total was low, right?
44.5.
44. Yeah. So, I mean, they're expecting low in this game.
I could see a game. I think the comp to San Fran is perfect. I could see a game like that. If Darnold is moving the ball, Hurts isn't going to have the same success that he did last week against the Chiefs. It's not going to happen, right? So they need it to be a low scoring game. Darnold's been much improved. I mean, I know he had 2 interceptions last week. If he doesn't throw,
but 2 rushing touchdowns
right.
too. Darnold's good.
He's moving.
Darnold looks good. Joe Brady is the saving grace for Sam Darnold. He saved Joe Burrow, and now he's saving Sam Darnold. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So we talked obviously not we, but everybody talked about the lack of a run game last week against the Cowboys. And me and AJ were talking. It was like, yeah, well, if you want to try to control the clock, keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hand, maybe you run the ball a little more. 10 times last game. 7 carries for Miles Sanders.
RPO.
The weird thing is, and I guess most of that's Hurts' call, and I've seen him hand off a couple times to Miles Sanders where he should be taking the ball himself, and then I've seen him take the ball himself a couple times where he should be handing it off to Miles Sanders. They need to really get a grasp on that RPO if they want to run it effectively. I think they can, but they're just out of sync. The offensive line, obviously, with it being jumbled, I think it's hard to put those guys. This is what I don't get. I know you want to base your offense around Jalen Hurts' strengths. I know the RPO, just because of his athletic ability and the guys you got in the backfield, can be a strength. But if you're patching offensive lines together every week, don't you think you should just give them the opportunity to run, just straight up run the football without the RPOs at least 20 times a game?
And that's what we talked about before the Eagles game last week was, you had 4 backups then.
Yeah.
Those guys, they get going by run blocking, not pass blocking. They want to be on their toes, not on their heels. So yeah, I agree with you. And
I thought they were going to run.
That was part of our breakdown.
Part of the break. Right, I thought they were going to run, and then they didn't.
I think everybody did.
Yeah.
I know.
But they were having success through the air. So maybe, but still, you have to, like you said, the time of possession, there's so many things that go into running, not just the yard you're gaining. It's the mojo of the offensive line. It's the time of possession. There's so many other things that you're doing by running the ball. The play action becomes effective then, where it's not a threat if you're not running the ball. So, yeah, I don't. That's a mystery.
I don't see more, and for this week, I don't see more than like a 23-20 kind of game. I really don't in this, and that's giving the Eagles. I don't know if the Eagles get to 17. I don't know if Carolina gets to 23. This is an ugly game to me.
And we have.
I wonder how they're going to adjust the game plan, given that they probably figure they're not going to be in a shootout and they're probably not going to drop back 40 or 50 times. But I'm starting to think I don't know how they're going to coach, and it seems like you would expect certain adjustments to be made, and they're like, nope, this is what we – and I know when you're coaching, you have a certain type of offense and a certain type of defense you want to run, and if you get good at it and stick to it, you can be a great team. But it just doesn't seem like there's adjustments, and I can't tell if it's because of the lack of the belief in the personnel or if they're just trying to implement something specific so maybe they can get rolling in the second half of the season if everybody kind of gets healthy. What are your thoughts on that?
I just don't. You're right on that. It's hard to read because I don't know this coach enough to know if he's going to do it. Because before the game last week, he was talking all week like he knew he had to run the ball.
Yeah.
The whole thing was they're going to run this ball more. And when you talk about these 10 rushes and they're RPOs, so that means if he read it differently, they might not even be rushes. So it's just it's crazy to me. I want to believe that they know they have to be in a running game this week. They know that this can't be. They need to kill clock in this Carolina game.
What's tough about that though is I don't know that they're going to have much success running the ball against this Carolina
Great
front.
Point.
And if they start running the ball and they're not having success, they're going to go right back to let's sling it.
You're right.
RPOs.
That's a great point.
What's weird to me, looking at this game, what's weird to me is the line is weird. Carolina's a 3-point favorite at home right now. Which means on a neutral, 1.5 point favorite, right? And I see this Carolina team being better than 1 point better than the Eagles.
I know. It was a funky line. It was the first one that drew my attention. And then it started at 4, I think, and has come down since.
So I don't know. I don't know if people are overreacting to the loss to Dallas. We'd have to dig in more, but it's just the more and more I stare at this one, it's odd to me.
Well, I think it's hard to look at the Panthers season and especially the defensive numbers they put up in the first couple games and then realize that they played possibly the 4 worst offensive teams in the league. So they played the Steelers, who you could make an argument outside of the Texans with Mills right now might be the 2nd or 3rd worst offensive team in the league. They played the Jets. They played the Saints, and Jameis Winston hasn't looked like he can run an offense effectively at all. And then they played the Texans. So then you go ahead and you play the Dallas Cowboys, and they put 36 up on you. It's like, okay, well, how good is this team? Because the same thing happened to the Eagles against Dallas, but is Dallas just that good offensively, or are the Panthers just not as good defensively? I would pick the latter. I think the Panthers are going to be closer to a top 5 to 10 defense than it is just like, Dallas is just going to run over just about everybody offensively. You're going to have to, win a shootout with Dallas for the most part every week. But I think people are struggling to make, figure out what this Panthers team is. But I'll tell you, I think I figured out what this Eagles team is, and they're just not very good. So we'll see what happens. And I tend to agree with you.
And with the whole thing with Sirianni, you know what you're getting on the other side with Rule.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like when you look at these coaching matchups, you're going to get a prepared team with Carolina.
Gilmore's a big bring-in for Carolina too, though.
I was about to ask about that.
You got all these young kids running around, and now you got a leader in that secondary for guys like for Chin to follow and all. I love it.
Yeah, so he should be back in 2 weeks. So he comes off of IR. He has to look healthy. The quad has to hold up, and then he has to get back into game shape. They might use him sporadically in about 2 weeks, and then probably be full force with him 3 to 4 weeks. Might get a new contract after the year. I think he's 31, so maybe he won't get the contract that he's hoping for, or maybe he chooses to go somewhere else. After the year because the contract's up, the money's somewhere else, or maybe he just wants to go and win a Super Bowl somewhere. We'll see. Maybe he joins up with this guy Tom Brady over at those Buccaneers and goes for another ring over there.
Richard Sherman spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this week's game, I'm not going to give it away, but Tony and Nikki, you gave me a ridiculous stat for one of the games you were looking at. A division game, and I'm not going to give it away, but there is a very high percentage. You're looking at the history of the league for the most part and what teams do in specific situations on a specific schedule, playing specific teams. And you gave me something that hits at a very, very high margin. We won't get into that right away, but give me a little preview. If you want that pick, just sign up, www.catching3.com. You'll get that pick this week. I was in Virginia earlier talking to Tony Nicky Jr. about this. I immediately pulled up my phone on DraftKings because I can't bet in North Carolina, and I placed a huge bet based on what you told me because I love it. But give me exactly. Give me the picks or the breakdowns for this week of some of the games you guys are looking at and thinking about giving out for some premium picks potentially.
For sure. And that stat I gave you was AJ's stat. I stole the stat. So I didn't wait to mention it because I was like, this is AJ's stat. I'm going to get burned on it.
Yeah, he took credit for it.
The stat.
I was trying to think. I'm like, he didn't tell me about a stat, but I knew I told him one. So I'm like, maybe he's talking about the same thing.
That's so funny.
Yeah, that was a good one. That's a good one. And those, and we're not going to go into what it was.
Yeah.
Trends are, if you're talking about, when a team plays on the 4th Monday of the month and it rains and they covered 62% of the time, that doesn't matter. But if there's really trends that you could put a story behind it, Andy Reid coming off a bye, or where it makes sense of
stuff that makes sense, right?
Logically, okay, he's got more time to prepare, and this trend was one that actually does make sense.
It's a monster. It's a monster.
Monster, dude.
Yeah. So I like digging into trends when they make sense like that. So
yeah. Some sides we like this week though. Should we say what spot that was?
No, don't do that.
Well, no, it is. If you can dig into what I was going to say what game it was, not what team it was.
No. Leave it.
Yeah.
I like it too much.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely some funky lines, dude. I'll say the line that instantly stood out to me that was so weird is that Green Bay Cincinnati spot. We said it right when we're like, man, Green Bay's only laying 3 to Cincinnati, which is insane. And then you were saying that Lombardi made a point today about how it's the line's closer to -1. All the advanced stats and things like that have that line is closer to 1.
Yeah, people that really power rate would even say that Cincinnati's having a better year than Green Bay. So, and when you put the lines together, you're putting it based on, a lot of times, just mostly based on perception. You want to put a line that it's going to get bet on both ends. So if they opened up Cincinnati -1, I mean, everybody would be running to bet Green Bay. You can't do that. But when you really dig into the numbers, and that's where people find an edge, you dig into the numbers and you say, well, that line's more based on perception than it is actual talent. Green Bay's had a weird year so far. They lose that opener. Even last week, we were on the Steelers, which ended up being the wrong side. But we talked about if that blocked field goal for a touchdown, right? If the Steelers go into half with the lead, that was what we were hoping would happen, because when they had the lead, their defense is able to pin their ears back and get after Rodgers. They weren't going to be able to come back in that game. So
it looked like it was going to be the Buffalo game to me, exactly.
Right.
It was the same thing, getting 6.5 on the road. Tomlin gets in that defensive kind of game. When they went down the field, I was thrilled at the open. When it was 7-0, I was like, this is exactly what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. And then Green Bay, even Detroit had him at halftime, and the rain came, and Goff couldn't move the ball. So, like, Green Bay has a ton of problems, but Aaron Rodgers makes up for a ton of problems, which is a great thing. But, dude, in a game on the road here in Cincinnati, I don't think Green Bay's really a 4-1 team. 3-2 could make sense to me. I could just see Cincinnati in a war here in a tight game. And I know it's a hold your breath kind of pick. It's a scary one, but
and they kind of feel right now that the division is theirs for the taking if they can run a little bit. And that's a big feeling for a team like Cincinnati, especially given the massive injury to Joe Burrow last year and watching him come back from. I mean, they have to be amped up over there a little bit. You let go of AJ Green, who people probably thought in the locker room at that point was maybe dragging some of the morale down. He just looked like he wanted to be elsewhere, didn't want to be on the field. They're just an interesting team and a team I'm going to watch. And I can understand why, the line, the perception might be the way that it is. But if the line is a small line and I have Aaron Rodgers on one side, I'm having trouble.
Well, yeah, sure. and it's hard, right? It's hard to go against Aaron Rodgers. And if you look at, I'm pulling it up now. Some of the stats you had mentioned with Carolina may hold true a little bit for Cincinnati. They've played Minnesota. They played week 1, and Cousins put up 24 against them. And then they play the Bears, who don't have a great offense. They play the Steelers, who don't have a great offense. And then Jacksonville puts up 21 against them, but they don't have a great, they haven't had a great offense all year either. So he's definitely going to be the best quarterback they've played against. But I think Burrow will move the ball against that defense for sure.
Yeah, I could just see it being somewhat of a higher scoring game. And it's tough. There's a lot of weeks when I don't trust or go near the Bengals because I think Taylor sucks as the head coach, but LaFleur sucks.
Just as bad.
LaFleur sucks. So I'm not losing any real value with the coach here. Because there are certain times, like if you got a McVay or a Shanahan going against a Taylor, I'm like, I'm running from that. But LaFleur's horrible, man.
Yeah.
Couple games I'm interested in, and I'll get just a quick take on them because we got the football game coming up. Just as quick as you guys can. For whatever reason, the Falcons-Jets game's intriguing me now because I feel like the Falcons are about to click and the Jets just pulled off their first win, so they're feeling kind of good about it. But I really think and feel like the Falcons are pretty close to clicking to be good enough to be an average team. And maybe this line's going to be just a little bit too small for, the perception is the Falcons are this awful team. And I don't think they're going to be as bad. So if it's a small line, would you guys lean Falcons on that?
It's a tough game.
Need some points, man,
in
London.
Tough.
I look points in London. 46 is the total. If I played it, I think it's an over to me.
Right. So that we'll give.
I've been waiting for a year and a half, dude. I've been the guy that's been talking up like the analytics and the numbers on Atlanta for a year and a half. Oh, they lost this game. They were a 99% chance to win. At some point, Atlanta's just the team that loses games when they were a 99% chance.
They're the Chargers.
It's bad, man. It's like driving me crazy.
Yeah, the Jets and same thing with Wilson. He's going to face again another team that doesn't have a great defense. So you're going to get a little bit of that. Is he the week 1 through 3 Wilson? Is he last week's Wilson? Where does he land? And Wembley just throws everything out when you're going to London. It kind of
Who went out the night before? You know what I mean, AB? Honestly, remember the Jags? There was like 6 of them arrested or something, or maybe they were just out partying. They got a big bar thing.
How many times do you get over there, especially in the middle of your NFL season? I mean, you're gonna take advantage, and I mean, if I had kids, I'd be like, hey, it's just football. You'll play the next week. Have fun while you're out. It's like that type of thing. Like have fun at prom. Have fun at college. Don't take it too seriously, kid.
Yeah, for sure.
Last ones. I'm looking at the Browns Browns Chargers very intriguing to me as well.
Yes.
AJ liked this one.
Yes.
I don't know where to go, AB.
Yeah,
What were you on, AB?
Well, I don't even know what the spread is.
So the spread is the Chargers are favored, I think, by 2.5. They're 2.5 now, which is interesting. It's a real interesting matchup because now you have, we were talking about the Chargers coming off the win against the Chiefs. Now you got to win off the Chiefs and the Raiders, 2 huge wins.
Yeah.
Baker did not play well against Minnesota at all. And I think a lot of that was more on him than it was the Vikings defense. He missed a lot of throws. But that defense for the Browns looks really good.
Yeah, I would, it's in Los Angeles, which again, it's not like this massive home field advantage, but it's also not like Browns fans. There's not a bunch of Browns fans in California. So it's not going to be like any type of thing like it was with the Raiders. Yeah. I would like to look into it a little bit more. You know what I have noticed though over the last couple of years, which has changed for the Browns? They can win big by putting up points, and they also have shown the ability to win ugly games. And for the Chargers at this point, if this is going to be one of those ugly games because the Browns can run the hell out of the football, I would lean towards that. But I'd have to look into this game a little more, especially with coming off a huge win for the Chargers in prime time and then having to go play a really good Browns team that's going to just run the shit out of the ball in the next week. I would lean towards the Browns, I think, if I was betting.
Yeah, the weakest part of the Chargers defense has been their run defense. And the Browns, that's what they're going to want to do. They're going to want to run the ball. Oh, yeah. And you're right, coming off 2 big wins. And oddly enough, the Browns, who were a public team the past couple of years, have been a little bit under the radar this year. Yeah. It was talked about, they're going to be a great team, they're going to go to the Super Bowl. But then as the season started, you don't really hear much about the Browns.
No, not at all.
They're just kind of doing their thing. And, what's difficult about this is their second road game in a row. They were just in Minnesota. Now they got to go out to LA, which becomes a tricky spot. But I think the matchups, I think they favor Cleveland a little bit.
Yeah, I would agree, and honestly, I think the reason that people aren't really talking about the Browns like almost in the way they were last year, it's kind of a hard schedule to put together for them because they scored 19 points, that was preseason. They went toe to toe with the Chiefs a little bit, who have a terrible defense, as we all know. They played the Texans. They put up 31. They put up 26 against the Bears. But you're not seeing remember last year, they're breaking Chubb and Hunt are breaking all these huge runs. There's huge plays down the field. They're hitting they're all over SportsCenter and ESPN because they're scoring now just methodically throughout the game. And I think it was just people were having more fun watching them last year. Jarvis Landry's not there. I think I know what to make of them. I think they're a complete team. I think they have a really good coach, and I think they know their identity. But I also, when I was looking at the Raiders game last week, I was like, everybody's, on Monday, everybody's picking the Chargers because they're a fun, flashy team, and I think the Raiders are going to win, and, that didn't happen. So I guess you guys will let us know how that line moves and what you guys are thinking. Your picks will be out Sunday by about 11 to 12 p.m. For whoever signs up for your premium packages. You might be texting throughout the game. By the way, prop bet I like tonight, Cooper Kupp, over 6.5 receptions, he has a terrible matchup. Or for Seattle, it's a terrible matchup. He's the second lowest ranked corner in the league, according to PFF, that he's going up against. 6.5 receptions for Cooper Kupp. I'd go over on that. That's my prop bet. I'm the betting expert here. I'm going to take some of the air out of the room. But we'll catch up with you guys on Saturday or Sunday. You guys will have your locks in. If you guys haven't signed up on catching3.com, I'm telling you right now, there is a huge bet, a huge lock for them this coming weekend that you're not going to want to miss. So make sure you sign up. I've already put my bet in. I will show you guys the winning ticket because it will come through on Monday. I'll send it to these guys, and we'll join you again on Saturday or Sunday. Guys, thanks for joining me. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, brother.
Good stuff. Talk to you later.
Bye, man.